I'm Gary Comer, and tonight, we're down in the downtown, and we're going to be talking about the compassion mobilization side of things with the church. And I am with Monique Lewis, who's one of the leaders over the anti-human trafficking ministry. And so we're going to get some thoughts from Monique here in a little bit. But anytime we're moving in the direction of compassion, we're actually becoming more like Jesus. And so it's a very important subject matter. And obviously, when we show love and get out there and meet needs and show the love of Christ, it can have a drawing effect and impact on people's lives. And yet, I also want to say, when we talk about the ministries of the church, outside in the different places where we're meeting needs, it is very possible not to fulfill the holistic vision of Jesus. And there's one verse that I think is very helpful for all leaders to look at and to discuss and to think about. It's Matthew 9:36. It says, "He saw the crowds, he had compassion on them, seeing them as harassed and helpless, sheep without a shepherd." And that particular verse is very important because it really shows two different levels of need. One of the needs was the life condition need. That was that they were harassed and helpless. And so clearly there was that need, but there's also this spiritual need as reflected in Jesus' words, sheep without a shepherd. Certainly that's a spiritual reference. And so I like to take this idea of the breakdown of these needs and this vision of Jesus, and I like to break it into three levels because it's very helpful to evaluate your ministry with these three different levels. We have the life condition need, and then we have a relational level need, and then we have the spiritual formation need. And each one of us has needs in those areas. I have life condition needs, you have life condition needs. People in the city have life condition needs. I have relational needs, you have relational needs. People in the city have relational needs. Same is true for the spiritual formation area. We all have needs in these areas. And so we can relate and identify with others along those lines. And all of the needs are important. They're important to be met. And so when we minister, it's significant that we consider each one. And we try to do what we can to minister at that level. Now, what I do want to say is that what we have in a lot of churches sometimes is we have efforts, but they're only level one ministries. They're meeting life condition needs, but they're not getting to the deeper levels of the relational needs or the spiritual formation needs. And so that is something to evaluate. We certainly want to fulfill the holistic vision of Christ. We want to see people ultimately come to Him, and we want to see them get connected into a Christian community as well. And so each of these are important, and it's very important to think through exactly how we're engaging so we have a chance to see the vision fulfilled. Now, I want to talk to Monique and ask her a few different questions. Monique, we've interacted about this many times, but just within the mission context of the human trafficking ministry that you've done, tell us, what are some ways that you have helped the relationship side develop?
I would say the number one way that we've helped would be definitely trying to remain consistent in our ministry. And that's probably the hardest thing, just because of time constraints and people's schedules, and identifying which areas of compassion we should volunteer for and be a part of. We actually volunteered for a 21-day facility that housed at-risk, homeless, trafficked youth. And over the course of 2 years, we spent one day a month with these kids. And God helped us really identify that this was a area that we needed to be a part of, just because the average age of a child entering human trafficking is between 12 to 14. So if we could somehow influence these kids by remaining consistent, then maybe we can make an impact, and prevent them from becoming victims of human trafficking.
Yeah, and consistency, coming and connecting with them consistently creates that familiarity,
right,
where relationships can form and deeper conversations
right,
can happen. And there are some time factors that are difficult at a safe house. As you've gone down, we've been down to the safe house numbers of times. Some of the kids are on the clock. They're only there for so many days. Is that right?
Right. And sometimes we were lucky. We got to see them more than once. But a lot of times there was different kids. You know, there was only, I would say, between an average of 12 to 15 kids that came at a time. So we did have really intimate moments. You know, we were able to pray for them and lay hands on them and really spend some time. But I felt that we should have been planted there more. If we could spend more time with them, maybe some of them would have, you know, became disciples of Christ.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But
yeah.
boy, those are the eyes that we need, and often it takes some imagination to you know, to look at the mission that you're involved with and say, how can we get it to some of these deeper levels? I remember a conversation with Eric, who is overseeing one of the soup kitchens, and he was talking about offering a resume service there to people that they were feeding. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a wonderful idea. Think about the deep conversations you can have, and putting a resume together. You can share your own life. There's all sorts of great things that could flow from that. I've seen some great things. I mean, one of the gals at Sandals, she had a book club at one of the recovery homes, and it was just amazing to see the fruit that came from the relational development just from doing a simple thing as a book club there. And so, you know, there's a lot of different ways. Now, have you thought of some other, or what are some other ideas that, you know, we've thought about as far as building that relationship opportunity?
Well, a lot of times, you know, these kids needed to be driven to their appointments. Simple things, you know, like Gary's talking about the life condition needs. You know, we provided the service of just taking these kids, driving them from here to there. You know, their counseling appointments. And for me, I got to experience it one time, and it was probably it was very impactful, just because we were able to share the same space for most of the day, and we really got to know each other, you know, and we really got to share, you know, our life. And it wasn't that I was pushing her to share her story and her testimony, but she really got to hear my heart, and then she was able to open up. So just basically, you know, meeting basic needs, being a little creative with, well, I'll volunteer for this because this is something I can do. I have a car, you know.
Yeah.
It's very simple, but it's easily done. So.
Yeah. Many different ways to get that ongoing relationship opportunity happening. So let me move on and talk. We're also looking at that spiritual formation happening, and when we're able to build relationship, there's opportunity to have those deeper conversations. And in your particular mission, we did some training with your team about sharing the gospel. And so some of the viewers are familiar with the gospel key concept. Okay. Share with us some of your observations that you've had with some of the people that you've interacted with and the gospel key.
Okay, so like I said before, we volunteered at a 21-day facility, and over that course of, like I said, 2 years, I was able to really kind of hone into what these kids were saying. And for us, or for me, what I saw was definitely the gospel key for teenagers is their identity.
Identity.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
and what's happened with their identity.
Right, and how they brand themselves, they wear clothing, they wear logos, you know, that tell the world that they represent this company or this population of people. And I remember seeing this kid, he had on his wrist, you know, his favorite band. And from there, you know, he only was able to identify himself with this band because a few moments later, he was sharing with us that he was nothing. But he had written on here, you know, whatever band it was, I don't remember now, but he had branded himself.
Yeah, and you can see that all the more when you think about the fact that there's abuse, and there's victimization, and so there's these big major events that have taken place, and yeah, we talked about what happens to someone and the way they view themselves and some of those different things. Is that right?
Right. And their worth and value is established through this identity that they have, these labels that they brand themselves with. I'm good as this person, or I play basketball, or I listen to this band, but never really I'm this person, I'm loved, I'm worth Jesus' love. They don't see that. They don't see their value, they don't see their worth.
Yeah, so that's where we were really zeroing in on, that communication along the spiritual formation line would need to zero in on that so that we could really offer them what Christ is offering them according to their need and be able to communicate that. So,
exactly.
Yeah. I spent some time with one of the homeless ministries here of our church, work in the Riverbed area. There's an entire homeless community that is there. And during that time, we did some evaluation and we talked about the depth of what was happening in their ministry. And the leader, Ricardo, he really zeroed in on these 3 levels, and he was able to assess where they were. And he said, boy, that's really helpful for me to see, where are we? Are we developing relationship, and are we getting to this spiritual formation side? And they went into the Riverbed over a couple weekends just talking and trying to discern exactly where people were. And when they did that, their impact for Christ increased significantly. Now, what about in this context, I just want to ask you another question. How important is authenticity?
It's very important, I would say. I mean, especially for the population group of people that we were serving, 12 to 14-year-olds. Well, I should say 11 to 18-year-olds, because they can see through all that. They know what's real. They know what's fake, because a lot of times they're coming from those environments where things are just not real, and they've been abused and abandoned. And so they know when people are telling them lies, And so for us as Christians to come into their world pretty much and not be authentic and say that we have this cloak of Christianity, it strips all trust from them. They shut us off. They don't talk to us. So not creating this us versus them, drawing this line is not going to fly for them.
Yeah.
So being real, being honest, just like that girl that I drove around where, the whole day, I pretty much said, I need Jesus just as much as the next person. And so I don't know, but I hope that God honored that and that she took that, that day. So.
Amazing opportunities, but lots to think about in how to come alongside people within the whole mobilization movement of the church. How can we make disciples? How can we bring this holistic vision of Jesus, of meeting life condition needs, but also meeting their spiritual formation needs as well? Very significant. We hope that gave you lots of food for thought. Thank you, Monique, for being here.
You're very welcome.